The alien princess hated humans, until one earned her heart on the battlefield. Streaks of emerald and violet shimmered across the horizon, reflected in the floating crystal cities that floated above the planet's surface like fragile glass ornaments. From her palace balcony, Princess Leora watched the horizon with a cold, sharp gaze. Her people were proud, disciplined, and unmatched in skill, and yet, for all their power, a shadow loomed: the human fleet. Ever since the humans had entered the outer systems, Leora had grown up hearing tales of their recklessness. They were conquerors, invaders who destroyed everything they touched. Leora hated them with a passion that burned hotter than the twin suns of Arvesa. She had been trained for this moment her entire life, to defend her people, to fight humans if they ever reached her world. She would not allow them to take Arvesa. The palace trembled faintly as alarms sounded. From the war room, Leora's advisors rushed in, their faces tense. "Your Highness," one said, bowing sharply, "the human fleet is approaching. They are larger than we predicted. Our scouts report 500 ships in formation. They mean to invade." Leora's eyes narrowed. "Then we meet them on the battlefield, prepare the fleets, activate the city shields. I want every defensive position ready, and alert the Sky Guard. I will lead the front." "Yes, Princess," the advisors replied, rushing out to carry her orders. Outside, the floating cities hummed with life. The citizens of Arvesa looked up in fear and awe as the human fleet appeared over the horizon. Sleek, silver ships glinted in the sun, moving with precision, weapons bristling. Leora felt a mixture of anger and anticipation. She had trained for this moment, and she would not fail. As the first human ships crossed into Arvesan space, alarms blared across the floating cities. Leora climbed into her personal battle craft, a shimmering vessel shaped like a crystal falcon, and joined the Sky Guard. Her squad of elite warriors flanked her, each as skilled and disciplined as she was. They flew in formation toward the human fleet, their weapons ready. On the human side, Commander Elias Drake observed the approaching alien ships from the bridge of his flagship. Unlike many humans, Elias had grown up hearing stories of the aliens' intelligence, their discipline, and their culture. He knew the humans could not simply destroy Arvesa. It was too advanced, too defended. He did not want unnecessary bloodshed, but he also could not allow the fleet to retreat. "Evasive maneuvers," Elias ordered calmly. "Keep formation, but avoid direct conflict until we understand their patterns. Target only weapons systems. Civilians are off-limits. Remember, we are here to negotiate if possible, but we will defend ourselves." "Yes, sir," his officers replied, their hands steady on the controls. The first clash was violent but brief. Lasers and energy beams lit the skies, bouncing off the floating city's shields. Leora moved like a shadow, striking swiftly at enemy ships, dodging attacks with precision. But then she noticed something that made her pause. One of the human ships veered away from battle to protect a smaller vessel below. Her eyes widened. Humans, who she had been trained to see as reckless, were acting with strategy, even mercy. She focused on that ship and on the pilot controlling it. It moved with a calm, controlled determination that was unusual for humans. When the battle was over, she discovered that the pilot had saved a group of Arvesan civilians trapped in a lower sector. Leora's heart wavered. She had been taught that humans were enemies, but this one had risked his life to protect her people. Elia's ship emerged from the fight relatively unscathed. He maneuvered it with care, observing the Arvesan defenses. His crew looked to him for guidance, and he gave it calmly, making sure no unnecessary destruction occurred. He understood the alien princess was watching him. Somehow he could feel her attention even across the battlefield. The fighting continued for hours. Arvesa's floating cities were strong, but the humans were relentless. Both sides suffered damage, yet neither would back down. Leora and Elias crossed paths multiple times in the chaos of battle. Each time she saw him saving lives, protecting both humans and aliens alike. Each time, her anger mixed with something else, an unexpected respect, even curiosity. At one point, a human strike force tried to take control of a crystal spire in the center of Arves's capital. Leora led her squad personally to intercept them. The battle was intense, lasers slicing the air, engines roaring, and the ground trembling under explosions. She fought with skill unmatched by most of her warriors, but she noticed Elias again. He had disobeyed a direct order from his fleet to protect the spire. He was risking his mission, and perhaps his life, for something he believed was right. Leora's mind was conflicted. Why? She whispered under her breath. Humans were supposed to be selfish and destructive, yet this one risked everything for honor, for civilians, for something noble. By the end of the day, both fleets withdrew to assess the damage. Floating cities of Arvesa were scratched, and several human ships had been disabled, but there were no major losses on either side. Leora landed her craft on a platform in the royal city, stepping out to face her council. "We survived today," she said, her voice cold but firm. "But the humans are not what I expected. One among them, one commander, fought with honor, with care. We will watch him carefully. Perhaps there is more to their species than I believed." Her advisors exchanged nervous glances. "Your Highness, we must not underestimate them. They are still invaders." "Yes," Leora replied, "but one man has shown me that humans can be brave, intelligent, and honorable. That may change everything." Meanwhile, Elias debriefed his officers. "We will hold our position for now," he said. "Avoid unnecessary conflict. Study them, understand them, and always remember, they are not all our enemies. Some may become our allies." As night fell on Arvesa, the sky lit with distant fires and shimmering shields. Leora walked alone along the palace terraces, her mind restless. She had hated humans all her life, but today she had glimpsed something different, something she had not expected. In the quiet, she allowed herself a thought she would never speak aloud. Perhaps not all humans were the same. Perhaps if one could show honor and courage even in battle, others might too. And perhaps in time she could learn to trust, or even respect, the species she had been taught to hate. For now she would watch, wait, and prepare. The humans were not defeated, and she knew their commander would be back. When he was, she would be ready. Above the horizon, a small human ship drifted silently, scanning the city. Inside, Commander Elias Drake sat calmly, reviewing data from the day's battle. He had noticed the alien princess, her sharp gaze, her skill, and her discipline. She was unlike any alien leader he had encountered. Strong, intelligent, and unwavering. He respected her more than he had expected to respect any alien. As the stars twinkled above Arvesa, two minds, one human and one alien, began a silent duel of respect and curiosity. Both had seen courage, both had witnessed honor, and both had glimpsed the possibility of something more than hatred and war. The first part of the story closed not with a victory but with the promise of change. The battle had ended, but the war was far from over. Yet for the first time, the lines between enemies and allies blurred, and in that blur, a spark of understanding began to grow. Princess Leora returned to her quarters, her mind alive with questions she had never dared to ask. Could humans truly be more than conquerors? Could they be heroes? And what did it mean that she felt a strange sense of admiration for one human in particular? Meanwhile, Elias gazed at the Arvesan cities below, their crystal towers glowing softly in the twilight. He had faced many battles, but this was different. The aliens were powerful, proud, and disciplined, but he had seen something in their leader, a strength and integrity that mirrored his own. Perhaps, he thought quietly, they could find a way to coexist, even if it began with just one small act of understanding. The night deepened, and the two worlds rested under the same stars, preparing for the battles to come. One human, one alien princess, both aware that the future would demand more than courage. It would demand trust, respect, and perhaps one day something more. And somewhere in the shadows of Arvesa, the first seeds of a new story were planted, one that would test loyalties, challenge prejudices, and reveal the true power of humanity in the galaxy. The morning after the battle, Arvesa was quiet but tense. The floating crystal cities shimmered under the twin suns, but the streets below were filled with cautious citizens. Soldiers patrolled every corner, alert for signs of further attacks. Princess Leora walked along one of the wide terraces, her mind restless. The events of the previous day replayed in her head. She could not stop thinking about Commander Elias Drake, the human who had saved civilians, the one who had fought with honor, the one who had made her question everything she had been taught about humans. Her advisors approached, bowing with their usual discipline. "Your Highness," one said, "we have received urgent reports. A rogue faction has broken away from our main forces. They are arming themselves and preparing to attack Arvesa. Intelligence suggests they seek to control both our cities and the humans' fleet. They may even attempt to exploit the conflict between us." Leora's eyes narrowed. "So, while I fought to protect my people yesterday, another threat grows in the shadows," she said softly. "We cannot fight humans and our own rogues at the same time. What do you suggest?" "An alliance, Princess," the advisor replied cautiously. "We must work with the human forces. We cannot defeat the rogue faction alone." Leora's jaw tightened. The idea of working with humans, invaders, destroyers, was unthinkable. Yet if the reports were accurate, ignoring them would be suicidal. She nodded slowly. "Very well. Send a message to their commander. Arrange a meeting. I will speak with this Elias Drake." Meanwhile, Elias sat aboard his flagship, reviewing scans of Arvesa's cities. His crew noticed the tension in the room, but he remained calm. "We've received communication from the Arvesan princess," he said. "They propose a temporary alliance. A rogue faction threatens both of our forces. If we are to stop them, we must work together." One of his officers frowned. "Sir, can we really trust them? They are aliens. They tried to destroy us yesterday." Elias shook his head. "Not all of them are the same. And one of their leaders, one princess, fought with honor. We will take precautions, of course. But sometimes we must act with courage and trust, even if it feels risky. Prepare my shuttle. I will meet the princess in person." The shuttle descended into the heart of Arvesa's capital, moving cautiously past crystal towers and suspended bridges. Leora waited at the landing platform, her posture stiff, her eyes sharp. When the hatch opened and Elias stepped out, she studied him carefully. He was tall, strong, and calm, radiating confidence without arrogance. He bowed slightly in respect, and she returned the gesture, cautious but polite. "Princess Leora," Elias said, his voice firm but not hostile, "thank you for agreeing to meet. I understand this is unusual. But we face a threat that neither of us can overcome alone." "Commander Drake," Leora replied, "I am surprised you survived yesterday's battle. I admit, I did not expect a human to act with such restraint or honor." Elias nodded. "I do what I must to protect life, alien or human. That is my duty, and now our duty is to stop this rogue faction before they destroy both our peoples." Leora hesitated, then gestured toward the city. "Very well, we will work together for now. But know this, any betrayal will not be forgiven. I will protect my people at all costs." Elias inclined his head. "Understood, and I will do the same for mine." The two forces met in a neutral zone, a vast crystal plateau outside the city's main defenses. Humans and Arvesan soldiers stood in formation, wary but ready. Leora addressed both her people and the humans. "This rogue faction threatens all of us. We will combine our forces. Humans, follow Commander Drake. Arvesans, follow me. Together we will defend our homes." The soldiers murmured, some uncertain, others curious. Alliances were unusual and trust was rare. Yet the presence of two strong leaders, united in purpose, gave them courage. The first joint mission was reconnaissance. Leora and Elias led a small team into the dense forests beyond the city, following intelligence about rogue movements. The forest was thick, with enormous bioluminescent plants and strange, twisting roots. Every sound could be a trap, every shadow a hidden enemy. As they moved through the trees, Leora noticed Elias carefully helping a human soldier over a route, then pausing to point out potential dangers in the terrain to her guards. His attention to detail, his care for life, and his ability to think strategically impressed her. He was human, yes, but he also embodied values she respected deeply. Hours later, they discovered the rogue camp. From a ridge above, they could see dozens of ships, armed and ready. Leora's heart pounded. The rogues were stronger than she expected. Elias surveyed the camp silently, analyzing weak points and possible entry paths. "We cannot attack directly," he said finally. "They will destroy us if we try, but we can outsmart them. I propose a distraction. Your forces take the front, draw their attention. My team will move around and disable key weapon systems. Then we strike together." Leora studied him for a long moment. "Your plan relies on trust," she said. "Yes," he replied simply. "Trust, skill, and timing. I would not ask you to do it otherwise." Her fingers tightened around her weapon. She had trained her whole life for battle, yet something about his calm confidence made her feel uneasy in a way she could not explain. "Very well," she said. "We do it your way." The operation began at dusk. Arvesan forces advanced boldly, drawing the attention of the rogue soldiers. Leora led from the front, striking with precision and skill, forcing the rogues to focus on defending themselves. Meanwhile, Elias and his team slipped around the perimeter, disabling key weapons and disabling communications. It was a delicate dance of coordination and timing. A single mistake could mean disaster. Leora noticed how Elias moved, calm, deliberate, always considering the safety of both humans and aliens. She could not deny it. He was extraordinary. When the two groups converged at the rogue command center, chaos erupted. Lasers cut through the night, shouts echoed, and smoke filled the air. Leora fought fiercely, her crystal blade glinting in the firelight. Beside her, Elias was equally skilled, moving with strength and precision, protecting both humans and Arvesans alike. The rogues were formidable, but the joint forces of humans and Arvesans were unstoppable. Each side used their unique strengths. Alien agility, human ingenuity, combined strategy. In the end, the rogue faction was defeated, their leaders captured, their weapons destroyed. When the battle ended, the two leaders stood together, surveying the field. The rogues had fled or surrendered, and the threat was neutralized. Soldiers on both sides cheered, some with disbelief that humans and Arvesans had fought side by side successfully. Leora turned to Elias, her expression unreadable. "I admit I did not expect this outcome. You and your people fought with honor. Perhaps I misjudged humans." Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps there is more to your people as well. We both learned today that trust and courage can overcome hatred." There was a quiet moment between them, a shared understanding. Leora realized that her hatred for humans was not absolute. One man had shown her that bravery, honor, and empathy could exist even in those she had been taught to despise. Over the following days, Leora and Elias worked together to strengthen their alliance. They trained soldiers together, exchanged strategies, and even shared stories about their worlds. Leora found herself laughing at Elias' dry humor, marveling at human ingenuity, and appreciating the calm determination with which he approached every challenge. She also noticed the changes in herself. She no longer saw humans as a monolithic enemy. Instead, she saw potential allies, capable of great courage and loyalty. And in the center of this realization was Elias, brave, clever, compassionate. One evening, as the sun set and the crystal towers glowed in the fading light, Leora walked with Elias along a terrace. "I must admit something," she said quietly. I never thought I would find myself respecting a human, let alone working beside one. Elias looked at her calmly. Respect is earned, princess, and you have earned mine as well. Together we are stronger. We have proven that today. Leora nodded, a small smile touching her lips. For the first time she felt something she had never allowed herself to feel: hope. Hope that humans and Arvesans could coexist, hope that the future could be brighter, and hope that one day, perhaps, they could truly understand one another. Above the city, the stars began to shine, reflecting off the crystal towers. The battle had ended, but the work of alliance and trust had only just begun. Leora and Elias, once enemies by circumstance, now stood united by choice. And in that unity, they found strength, not just to defeat enemies, but to redefine the future of their worlds. As the night deepened, both leaders returned to their respective quarters, their minds alive with possibilities. They had faced a threat together, learned to trust each other, and glimpsed the potential for something greater. The uneasy alliance had begun, and with it, the seeds of a bond that could change the course of history. Leora gazed out over the city one last time that night, her heart steady. She had seen courage and honor in a human. She had seen cooperation and strength in an unexpected alliance. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. For both worlds the future was uncertain, but one truth had emerged clearly. Humans could be more than enemies, could be heroes. The air above Arvesa was tense, electric with anticipation. The rogue faction, thought to be weakened, had returned in greater numbers. Their ships, larger and more heavily armed than before, hovered menacingly over the floating crystal cities. Reports from scouts were grim. The rogue fleet had allied with a group of mercenaries from beyond the system. If they succeeded, the heart of Arvesa would fall, and countless lives would be lost. Princess Leora stood on a high terrace of her palace, overlooking the capital city. Her guards were stationed around her, weapons ready, but it was not the sight of enemy ships that tightened her chest. It was the thought of Commander Elias Drake. Ever since their first battle together, he had become more than an ally in her eyes. He had proven himself brave, honorable, and intelligent. And now, with the rogue fleet advancing, she knew she would have to rely on him again, perhaps more than she dared to admit. The ground trembled as alarms echoed through the crystal towers. Leora's advisors hurried to her side. "Princess, the rogue fleet is preparing to strike. Their numbers are greater than before. Many ships are targeting the lower districts where civilians are most vulnerable." Leora's eyes burned with determination. "Then we meet them at the front, activate the city defenses and alert the Sky Guard. I will lead the battle personally. Prepare the squads for coordinated maneuvers with the human fleet." "Yes, Princess," her chief advisor said, bowing. On the human side, Commander Elias Drake stood on the deck of his flagship, observing the approaching enemy. "We cannot allow the rogues to capture the city," he said. "We will coordinate with the Arvesan forces. Focus on defense first, minimize civilian casualties, and watch for openings. We must be precise." His officers nodded, tension in their eyes. They respected Elias, and they trusted him. But even seasoned soldiers could not hide the anxiety that came with facing such overwhelming odds. The two forces met over the lower districts of Arvesa, where the floating crystal towers formed narrow corridors between the city streets. The rogue fleet struck first, sending wave after wave of energy attacks. The city's shields flared brightly, absorbing the impact, but several structures cracked under the strain. Leora flew her crystal falcon directly into the heart of the battle, her elite squad flanking her. Lasers cut through the sky, and explosions sent shards of crystal falling dangerously close to the streets below. Yet Leora's focus was unbroken. Every movement was precise, calculated, and deadly. She struck at rogue ships, guiding civilians to safety and coordinating with Elias' fleet. From the human side, Elias moved with equal precision. He gave orders calmly, directed his pilots through dangerous maneuvers, and personally engaged rogue vessels that threatened the city's defenses. Every decision he made displayed courage and foresight, qualities that impressed Leora more with each passing minute. The battle raged for hours. Both sides were exhausted, yet neither would yield. Leora and Elias found themselves repeatedly working in tandem, covering each other's flanks, coordinating attacks and saving soldiers in critical moments. At one point, a rogue commander piloting a massive assault ship targeted a crystal spire where civilians had gathered. Leora charged forward, but the enemy's fire was too concentrated. Before she could react fully, Elias maneuvered his ship between the spire and the assault vessel. Energy blasts struck his shields, causing sparks to fly across the cockpit, but he held firm, giving Leora time to guide civilians to safety. The spire remained intact and the enemy ship was pushed back. Leora's chest heaved with relief and admiration. After the immediate danger passed, she hovered near Elias' ship, her voice amplified through comms. "Commander Drake, your timing. You saved many lives. Thank you." Elias' calm voice responded, tinged with humor despite the chaos. "It's what humans do. We fight, we protect, and we survive. I could not allow the civilians to suffer, and I trust you would have done the same." Leora blinked, unprepared for the honesty and simplicity in his words. She realized something new about him, not just his courage in battle, but his integrity. He was not seeking glory. He was not trying to impress anyone. He acted because it was the right thing to do. As the rogue fleet pressed forward, Leora and Elias noticed an unusual pattern. The enemy forces were converging toward the city's central command center, the place where both Arvesan and human strategies were coordinated. If it fell, the city would be in chaos and the rogue faction could take control of key defensive systems. "We must defend the command center," Leora said through comms. "If they breach it, everything we've worked for will be lost." Elias nodded. "Agreed. I will take a team around their left flank and intercept. You cover the front. Timing is crucial. Move with precision." The plan required perfect coordination. Leora led her squad forward, drawing the rogues' attention with daring maneuvers. She struck with precision, taking down several rogue ships while protecting civilians below. Every move she made demonstrated her skill and courage, but the pressure was immense. Each decision could mean life or death for countless people. Meanwhile, Elias and his team slipped around the flank, using the terrain and enemy movements to their advantage. They struck quickly and efficiently, disabling key weapon systems and forcing rogue ships to retreat. The combined forces of humans and Arvesans began turning the tide. During the climax of the battle, Leora found herself trapped on a narrow crystal bridge, surrounded by rogue soldiers. Her squad had been scattered, and enemy ships loomed above. She was alone, vulnerable, and cornered. For the first time in the battle, fear pricked at her. Then through the chaos, she saw him, Elias. His ship maneuvered directly into the enemy's path, drawing fire and creating a distraction that allowed her to escape. He moved with deliberate risk, exposing himself to danger without hesitation. Leora's breath caught as she realized the magnitude of his actions. He had placed himself in danger to save her, not because he owed her anything, not because it was convenient, but because it was right. A warmth spread through her chest, mingling with her adrenaline. Respect, admiration, and something deeper began to take root. The rogue forces were finally defeated. Ships exploded, smoke and sparks filled the sky, and the last enemy vessels fled into the distance. Leora and Elias, both exhausted and injured, landed near the city's central command center. Soldiers from both sides cheered, relief washing over them after the intense struggle. Leora stepped out of her ship, her armor scratched but her spirit unbroken. She approached Elias, who was tending to a minor injury on his arm. "You risked yourself to save me," she said quietly. "Why?" Elias looked up, calm despite the battle's exhaustion. because it was the right thing to do, because a leader protects those who depend on them. And because I trust you, Princess. Trust is rare but worth everything. Leora blinked. Trust. She had always been taught to distrust humans, to see them as enemies. Yet here he was, proving her wrong in every possible way. She felt a strange mix of gratitude and admiration, feelings she could not ignore. For the next few days, the city recovered. Humans and Arvesans worked together to repair damage, rebuild defenses, and treat the wounded. The bond between the two forces grew stronger with every shared task. Leora found herself observing Elias closely, noting how he treated both human and alien soldiers with fairness and respect. She also noticed her own feelings changing. Hatred had once occupied her heart, but now she felt something new, a connection to someone from the species she had once despised. It was confusing, thrilling, and a little frightening. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple, Leora found herself walking alone near the palace gardens. Elias joined her quietly, without announcement. "You work tirelessly," he said softly. "Even after all the battles, you think of your people first. It is admirable." Leora looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "You understand that?" she asked. "I do," he replied. "I have seen leaders who seek power, and I have seen leaders who seek glory. But you, Princess, you fight for your people, not yourself. That is rare. That is why I respect you." Leora's heart quickened. Respect, trust, admiration, these words swirled in her mind. She realized that Elias had earned not just her respect, but a place in her thoughts that no other human had ever held. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that humans could be more than enemies. That perhaps if one human could act with such courage and honor, others might as well. As night fell over Arvesa, the two leaders stood side by side, watching the stars reflect off the crystal towers. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Yet in that moment, a quiet understanding passed between them, a shared acknowledgement that together they were stronger. And somewhere deep within her, Leora realized something she could not yet name. The hatred she had carried for so long had begun to fade, replaced by admiration, curiosity, and a sense of connection that surprised and unsettled her. The stars above shimmered with the promise of challenges yet to come, but also with the possibility of understanding, trust, and perhaps something more. Princess Leora returned to her quarters that night, her mind alive with questions and reflections. Commander Elias Drake was not just a human. He was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of everything her people could aspire to in an ally. She would not admit it aloud, but a seed of respect, and perhaps something stronger, had been planted in her heart. The trials of the battlefield had forged not only an alliance, but also the first threads of a bond that would test loyalties, challenge prejudices, and reveal the true nature of courage and honor. And in the quiet of her room, Leora allowed herself a single thought. Perhaps humanity was worth more than she had ever imagined. The city of Arvesa was quiet for only a brief moment. The streets glowed softly under the twin suns, reflecting off the crystal towers that had survived the last battle. For the first time in days, Princess Leora allowed herself to think about the future, about alliances, strategies, and even the strange sense of admiration she felt for Commander Elias Drake. But peace, even a temporary one, is fragile. Reports came swiftly to the palace that morning. One of Leora's trusted advisors, a council member responsible for coordinating city defenses, had disappeared. Suspicious activity was detected near the central command center, where both human and Arvesan forces planned operations. Leora's stomach tightened. She had trusted this advisor for years, but the intelligence suggested betrayal. Someone within her own ranks was undermining the defense of the city. She gathered her council in the war room. "This is serious," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "We cannot allow traitors to dictate the outcome of our city's defense." I want every movement of our soldiers monitored. Anyone acting suspiciously will be questioned immediately. Her chief advisor bowed. Princess, the human commander should be informed. He may be able to assist in identifying the source of the betrayal. Leora nodded and sent a message to Elias. Within the hour, he arrived at the palace, his face calm but his eyes alert. "You wanted to see me, Princess?" he asked. "Yes, Commander," Leora replied. "We have a serious problem. A member of my council is acting against us. Someone is aiding the rogue faction, and we need to identify them before they cause catastrophic damage." Elias nodded. "We will handle this carefully. The rogue faction may be counting on internal conflict to weaken us. We must act with caution and precision." Together, Leora and Elias reviewed surveillance data, patrol reports, and communication logs. It became clear that the traitor was feeding information about troop movements to the rogue faction. Every planned strike, every patrol route, every reinforcement schedule leaked. "This is worse than I thought," Leora said. "They could destroy the city from within before the rogues even reach our defenses." Elias placed a hand on the data console, his expression serious. "Then we strike first. We need to lure the traitor into revealing themselves. A controlled operation, minimal risk, maximum intelligence." Over the next few hours, they set a careful trap. Leora issued false orders through channels that only the council member had access to, while Elias coordinated movements of human and Arvesan forces to appear vulnerable. The rogue faction took the bait, moving quickly toward the city with the expectation of exploiting weakness. The trap was set. At sunset, chaos erupted. Rogue ships and mercenaries approached the central districts, expecting little resistance. Leora and Elias led a coordinated counterattack. Energy blasts lit the sky, and explosions shook the ground as Arvesan and human forces struck with precision. Amid the battle, Leora discovered the traitor. The council member was attempting to sabotage the city's shields, directing rogue attacks to vulnerable areas. Without hesitation, Leora moved to intercept, engaging the traitor directly. "You betrayed your people," she shouted as they clashed near the control console. "How could you?" the traitor sneered. "Power belongs to those who take it, Princess. The humans will destroy your world anyway. I only act to survive." Leora's fingers tightened around her weapon. "You underestimate the strength of our people and of humanity," she said, stepping forward. In a swift, controlled maneuver, she incapacitated the traitor, ensuring they could not cause further harm. Meanwhile, Elias led a squad to intercept rogue forces advancing through the city streets. They moved with perfect coordination, protecting civilians while disabling enemy weapons and capturing key operatives. At one point, a large rogue assault vessel threatened a district filled with families. Elias piloted his craft directly into its path, using a combination of strategy and courage to neutralize the threat. From above, Leora watched him again. His bravery, his skill, and his care for life were unmatched. And once more she felt that growing respect and something deeper stirring in her heart. The rogue faction's forces were pushed back, trapped between the Arvesan and human units. Their strategy had failed, and without inside support, they could not maintain their attack. By nightfall, the city was secure. The traitor was captured, and the rogue forces were either in retreat or under arrest. After the battle, Leora and Elias met at the central command center, both exhausted and covered in soot and scratches. Soldiers and civilians moved about, tending to the wounded and repairing the damage. The city had survived, but the events of the day had left a lasting impact. "You handled that well," Elias said quietly, his voice calm despite the exhaustion in his movements. "You were brave, decisive, and strong." Leora felt a flush of warmth. "I could not have done it without you, Commander. Your timing, it was perfect. You saved many lives today." Elias shook his head. "We saved many lives together. That is what matters. Leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility, courage, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. For a moment, silence fell between them. They stood side by side, two leaders from different worlds, bound by respect and the shared experience of a hard-fought battle. Leora realized that her feelings for him were no longer simple admiration. They were complex, intertwined with trust, gratitude, and a connection she had never experienced before. "I never thought I would say this," she admitted softly, "but I am grateful to the humans, especially to you." Elia's calm gaze met hers. "And I am grateful to your people. And to you, Princess. Courage, wisdom, and compassion are qualities that transcend species." The night deepened, and the city glowed under the twin moons. Leora and Elias walked along the terrace, speaking quietly about strategy, recovery, and the future. Though their worlds had been at war, they had found a way to work together, and through that work, a bond had begun to form. But the events of the day also left them both aware of the fragility of trust. A single traitor had almost undone everything. It was a reminder that vigilance, courage, and integrity were essential, not just in battle, but in every decision they made. Leora returned to her quarters that night, reflecting on everything that had occurred. The rogue faction had been defeated, her city had survived, and the alliance with the humans had been strengthened. Yet she could not ignore the thoughts that had taken root in her heart. Commander Elias Drake was no ordinary human. He was brave, honorable, and wise. He had risked himself repeatedly, not for glory, but for what was right. For the first time, Leora allowed herself to consider the possibility that she could not only respect a human, but also trust one completely. And that trust, she realized, was the first step toward something far greater than fear or hatred: connection. Meanwhile, Elias stood on the deck of his flagship, gazing at the city below. He thought of Princess Leora, strong, disciplined, and brave. She had led her people through unimaginable danger, guided them with wisdom and courage, and fought alongside him as an equal. He admired her more than he had expected, not only as a leader but as a person. Both leaders from different worlds had faced the trials of battle together. They had seen courage, honor, and integrity in one another, and in that recognition, they had begun to form a bond that neither hatred nor prejudice could break. The future remained uncertain. Rogue factions still lingered in the galaxy, and conflicts were never truly over. But Leora and Elias now had something stronger than mere strategy or power. They had trust. They had respect. And most importantly, they had the beginning of a connection that could change the course of history for both their peoples. As the stars shone brightly above Arvessa, the princess allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Perhaps humanity was worth more than she had ever imagined. Perhaps, with the right guidance, humans and Arvessans could learn from each other, protect each other, and face the future together. And somewhere deep within her, a quiet hope took root, a hope that trust could turn into friendship, and friendship could grow into something even stronger. The city was safe for now, but both Leora and Elias knew that new challenges would come. And when they did, they would face them together, stronger for the bond that had begun to grow between them. For the first time, the princess felt certain of one truth: hatred could be overcome, and respect could lead to understanding. And from understanding could come loyalty, courage, and perhaps even something more. The night ended with Arvessa peaceful, yet alive with possibility. A new chapter was beginning, not just for the city, not just for humans and Arvessans, but for two leaders whose courage and integrity had forged a bond stronger than any battle could destroy. The dawn over Arvessa broke like a promise. Crystal towers reflected the rising suns, scattering light across the floating city in 1,000 colors. The air was still, almost fragile, as if the planet itself held its breath. After weeks of battles, alliances, and close calls, the final challenge had arrived. The rogue faction, though weakened, had gathered one last fleet. They had stolen weapons from mercenaries and rallied rogue soldiers from distant systems. Their goal was simple: seize control of Arvesa and assert dominance over the humans and the alien civilization alike. Princess Leora stood atop the highest terrace of her palace. Her armor, though scratched from previous battles, gleamed under the morning sun. Her eyes were steady, her mind focused. Beside her, Commander Elias Drake adjusted the straps on his battle harness, scanning the horizon. The humans and Arvesans would fight together as one, and together they would win or die trying. "Are your forces ready?" Leora asked, her voice calm but strong. Elias nodded. "They are, humans and Arvesans alike. Everyone knows the stakes. We fight not just for victory but for survival, and we fight together." A brief silence passed, filled with unspoken understanding. Both leaders had seen the strength of the other's people. Both had seen courage and loyalty tested in fire. But this battle would be the ultimate trial. The rogue fleet emerged from the atmosphere in a shimmering arc, their ships bristling with weapons. They were larger, faster, and more numerous than any previous assault. Yet, as they advanced, they were met with the combined strength of the human and Arvesan forces. Laser cannons flared, shields shimmered, and the first volley struck. Leora led the Sky Guard, her crystal falcon slicing through enemy ranks with precision. Her squad followed closely, coordinated perfectly with the humans' movements. Each maneuver was calculated, every strike aimed to disable rather than destroy when possible. The chaos of battle surrounded her, yet she remained calm, her focus unbroken. From above, Elias piloted his ship with equal skill. He weaved between rogue fire, guiding his fleet, giving orders and intervening where needed. Every action was deliberate, every decision calculated to protect life and ensure victory. He glanced occasionally at Leora, impressed as always by her courage and skill. She was a warrior, a leader, and a strategist all at once. The battle raged for hours. Rogue ships targeted civilians, attempted flanking maneuvers, and deployed explosives. But the alliance between humans and Arvesans held strong. When one flank faltered, the other reinforced it. When a rogue ship targeted a spire filled with civilians, Leora and Elias coordinated to neutralize the threat with minimum risk. At one point, a massive rogue assault vessel, armed with energy cannons far beyond standard limits, approached the Central Command city. Leora's squad engaged it, but the vessel's size and firepower were overwhelming. Seeing the danger, Elias piloted his craft directly into its path, drawing enemy fire and exposing himself to extreme risk. Leora's heart leapt. "Elias, no," she shouted through comms, but he simply smiled faintly, a determined glint in his eyes. His action allowed her squad to disable the vessel's weapons, turning the tide of the battle. As the rogue forces began to retreat, the alliance pressed forward. Arvesans used their agility and knowledge of the city's terrain, humans their ingenuity and tactical flexibility. Together, they were unstoppable. Finally, the rogue commander, the last major threat, attempted to escape through a hidden warp gate. Leora and Elias pursued, coordinating their fleets with flawless timing. Leora moved with unmatched precision, guiding her squad to intercept while Elias manipulated the rogue ship's trajectory, cutting off their escape. In a final daring maneuver, Elias' ship rammed the rogue commander's vessel, disabling its engines without causing destruction. Leora swooped in, her crystal falcon landing on the rogue ship, and with a single, swift action, captured the commander. Silence followed the final clash. Rogue ships fled, their leaders captured, and the city of Arvesa was secure. The alliance had won. Cheers rose from both human and Arvesan forces. Soldiers, civilians, and leaders alike celebrated, but in the midst of victory, Leora and Elias found a quiet moment to stand together. "You did it," Leora said, her voice calm but filled with awe. "We did it, together." Elias shook his head. "It wasn't just me. It was your leadership, your courage, and the dedication of your people. Without you, none of this would have been possible. Leora looked at him, and for a moment words were not necessary. The battles, the shared dangers, the countless moments of trust and respect, they had built something stronger than either of them had anticipated. As the city celebrated, Leora turned to her people. "Citizens of Arvesa," she said, her voice amplified through the city's comm system. "Today we have faced threats greater than any one of us could face alone. And today, we have proven that strength is not only in power but in unity. Humans and Arvesans have fought side by side. Together, we are stronger. Today, we have shown that courage, honor, and trust can overcome even the greatest odds." The crowd erupted in cheers. Soldiers saluted, civilians clapped, and the human fleet responded with synchronized signals. It was more than victory, it was a symbol. Later, as the celebrations continued, Leora and Elias walked along a terrace overlooking the restored city. The sun dipped low, casting golden reflections across the crystal towers. "You know," Leora said quietly, "I never imagined I would feel this way about a human, about you." Elias looked at her, his expression gentle but steady. "I feel the same, princess. Our peoples may be different, but we have found something greater than differences. We have found respect, trust, and something more." Leora smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through her chest. "Perhaps this is only the beginning, not just for us but for our peoples. Perhaps one day humans and Arvesans will truly coexist, not as strangers or enemies but as allies, friends." Elias nodded. "And perhaps one day even more than friends, but we take it one step at a time. First we rebuild, then we grow stronger together." In the days that followed, Arvesa began to rebuild. Damaged crystal towers were repaired, streets cleared of debris, and the wounded treated with care by both human and Arvesan medics. The alliance solidified, with humans and aliens sharing knowledge, strategies, and even technology. Leora and Elias continued to work closely, their partnership now recognized by both peoples. They trained together, planned defenses, and shared meals, stories, and laughter. Their connection deepened, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Leora and Elias stood on a terrace overlooking the city. The air was calm, and the stars reflected off the crystal towers like 1,000 tiny diamonds. "Do you ever wonder," Leora asked softly, "what our worlds would have been like if we had met sooner?" Elias smiled. "Perhaps we would have fought anyway, but perhaps we would have learned from each other sooner too. The important thing is that we are here now together, building something better." Leora's heart lifted. She realized that the battles, the fear, and the hatred she had once carried were behind her. What lay ahead was hope, trust, and the promise of a shared future. "Then let us make the most of it," she said, "for our peoples and for ourselves." Elias reached for her hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "For our peoples and for ourselves." As they stood together, the city below glowed in harmony, a testament to unity, courage, and resilience. Humans and Arvesans had proven that even in a galaxy filled with conflict, understanding and cooperation could triumph. The rogue factions were gone, but the lessons remained. Hatred could be overcome, trust could be earned, and courage could inspire entire worlds. Leora and Elias had faced the trials of battle, the tests of loyalty, and the challenges of trust, and emerged stronger, both as leaders and as individuals. And in that strength there was hope. Hope that one day, humans and aliens would not only coexist but flourish together. That one day, their combined efforts could protect the galaxy from any threat and create a future where honor, bravery, and compassion were the highest virtues. The night settled over Arvesa, peaceful and bright. Leora and Elias remained on the terrace, watching the stars shimmer above. They had earned more than victory. They had earned trust, respect, and the beginning of something lasting. And somewhere deep within their hearts, they knew that the bond they had forged on the battlefield would guide them through the challenges yet to come, shaping not just their destinies, but the future of two worlds united. For the first time in her life, Princess Leora looked at humanity not as a threat, but as a source of hope. And for the first time, Elias Drake understood that courage, honor, and unity could be found in the most unexpected places. Together they would lead their peoples into a new era, a future forged not by conflict, but by trust, respect, and the extraordinary power of humanity at its finest.